The wind howled outside the tall windows of Thompson Hall as Dr. Eleanor Walsh rubbed her tired eyes. The linguistics department was empty at this late hour, just past 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. But she needed to finish reviewing these thesis proposals before tomorrow's faculty meeting. The storm outside matched her mood, frustrated and weary after a long day of back-to-back lectures. She reached for her coffee mug, now cold and nearly empty, when she heard voices from the hallway. At first, she thought some students had stayed late in the study lounge, but then remembered the building should be empty except for the cleaning staff. Curious, she tilted her head to listen. The voice spoke in perfect Mandarin Chinese, not just conversational phrases but complex, nuanced Mandarin with a natural flow that even some of her graduate students couldn't match after years of study. Dr. Walsh had spent 3 years teaching in Beijing early in her career, and she recognized the regional accent and colloquialisms that only came from true fluency. She stood up and walked to her office door, peering through the frosted glass. There, pushing a cleaning cart, was the janitor who had cleaned her office for years. She had always smiled politely when they crossed paths, but, like most professors, she had never really stopped to talk with him. She felt a flush of embarrassment at this realization. The janitor, Miguel according to his name tag, was speaking into a cell phone tucked between his ear and shoulder while emptying trash bins. He laughed warmly at something the other person said, then responded with a complex idiom that even Dr. Walsh had trouble translating. She waited until he hung up before opening her door. "Excuse me," she said. Miguel looked up, surprised to see someone still in the building. "Oh, I'm sorry, Professor. I didn't mean to disturb you. I can come back later to clean." No, you're fine," Dr. Walsh said quickly. "I couldn't help overhearing. Was that Mandarin you were speaking?" Miguel smiled shyly, ducking his head a bit. "Yes, my friend Lynn is having trouble with her landlord, and she needed some help translating documents." Dr. Walsh stepped fully into the hallway. "Your Mandarin is extraordinary. I lived in Beijing for 3 years, and I've never heard a non-native speaker with such natural command of the northern accent." Miguel's eyes widened slightly. "You speak Mandarin too? That's wonderful. Not many people here recognize it when they hear it." "I'm a linguistics professor," she explained, suddenly realizing they had never properly introduced themselves despite seeing each other regularly for years. "Eleanor Walsh. I specialize in language acquisition patterns." "Miguel Suarez," he replied with a small nod that seemed almost like a bow. "It's nice to officially meet you, Professor Walsh. Where did you learn Mandarin?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Your accent and idioms are spot on." Miguel glanced at his watch. "I had some friends from China when I worked in San Francisco. They taught me while I helped them with Spanish." He said it casually, as if learning one of the world's most difficult languages through conversation was perfectly ordinary. "That's incredibly impressive," Dr. Walsh said. "Most of my students struggle for years to reach even basic fluency." Miguel shrugged, looking slightly uncomfortable with the praise. "Languages just make sense to me, like solving puzzles." Something in the way he said it made Dr. Walsh's academic curiosity stir. "Do you speak other languages besides English, Spanish, and Mandarin?" Miguel nodded, returning to his cleaning cart. "A few others. I should finish my rounds, though. The storm's getting worse and I want to catch the last bus." "Of course," Dr. Walsh said, stepping back toward her office. Then, on impulse, "Would you mind if I asked which other languages?" Miguel paused, considering the question. For a moment, Dr. Walsh thought she had overstepped. "Russian, Arabic, French, German, Portuguese, and Italian," he finally said. "Some better than others. Arabic still gives me trouble with the throat sounds." Dr. Walsh felt her mouth fall open slightly. 9 languages? She had colleagues who had built entire academic careers on knowing 3 or 4. "How did you learn all those?" she asked, unable to contain her professional curiosity. Miguel glanced down the empty hallway, then at his watch again. "Life, mostly. I moved around a lot." He seemed reluctant to elaborate, and Dr. Walsh sensed there was a longer story there. "I'm sorry to keep you," she said. It's not often I meet someone with such extraordinary language abilities." Miguel smiled politely, but she could see he was eager to continue his work. "Thank you, Professor. Have a good night." As he pushed his cart down the hallway, Dr. Walsh returned to her office and sat heavily in her chair, the thesis proposals forgotten. Her mind was racing. How had someone with the ability to speak 9 languages ended up as a night janitor at Harvard? Was it an immigration issue? Lack of formal education? Financial necessity? The next day, she found herself watching for Miguel as she left her evening seminar, but a different custodian was working the floor. The day after, she stayed late again, catching up on emails until she heard the familiar sound of the cleaning cart. When Miguel appeared in her doorway, she waved him in. "Please don't let me interrupt your work," she said. "I just wanted to ask, would you be interested in having coffee sometime? As a linguist, I'm fascinated by how people acquire multiple languages, and your experience seems extraordinary." Miguel looked surprised, then slightly suspicious. "You want to interview me?" "Not formally," Dr. Walsh said quickly. "Just a conversation. I've been thinking about developing some new teaching methodologies, and I think your perspective could be valuable." Miguel considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I have a break around 8:30 tomorrow night. The campus cafe in the student center is still open then?" "Perfect," Dr. Walsh said with a smile. "I'll see you there." The next evening, she arrived at the cafe early, nervously arranging and rearranging the sugar packets on the table. Why was she nervous? This wasn't a date or even a formal interview. Yet something told her this conversation might be important. Miguel arrived precisely at 8:30, still wearing his janitor's uniform but with a clean jacket over it. He ordered a simple black coffee and joined her at the table. "Thank you for meeting me," Dr. Walsh said. "I realize this is unusual." "It is," Miguel agreed with a small smile. "Professors don't usually invite the cleaning staff for coffee." Dr. Walsh felt herself blush slightly. "I'm sorry if that came across as—" Miguel held up a hand. No, I didn't mean it that way. I'm happy to talk, just surprised." "I've been teaching linguistics for 15 years, Dr. Walsh explained, and I've never met anyone who's self-taught in so many languages to such a high level of proficiency. Most people struggle with even a second or third language without formal instruction." Miguel took a sip of his coffee. "It's not as impressive as you think. When you need a language to survive, you learn it quickly." "To survive?" Dr. Walsh echoed. Miguel nodded, his eyes growing distant. "The first language I learned after Spanish was English. When I came to the U.S., then French. When I had to leave quickly and ended up in Montreal for a while." Dr. Walsh sensed there was more to this story. "You don't have to share anything personal if you don't want to." "It's okay," Miguel said. "It was a long time ago." He paused, staring into his coffee. "Let's just say I had to leave Guatemala suddenly when I was younger. Political problems. I moved around a lot after that. And you picked up languages along the way." Dr. Walsh filled in. "Yes, Russian from the family that hired me in New York. They needed someone who spoke Spanish for their grandmother, and they taught me Russian in return. Arabic from my roommates in Detroit. German from a chef I worked for in Chicago." He shrugged. "When you're around people who speak different languages all day, you either learn or stay isolated." Dr. Walsh leaned forward, fascinated. "But that's just exposure. Most people can be exposed to a language for years and barely pick up the basics. You must have a system or method." Miguel thought for a moment. "I listen first. For weeks sometimes, before I try to speak. I learn the music of it, the rhythm, the tone. Languages have personalities. That's exactly what I try to teach my students," Dr. Walsh exclaimed, perhaps too loudly as several students glanced over at them. More quietly, she continued. "But most struggle with that approach. They want vocabulary lists and grammar rules." "Those come later," Miguel said. "First, you have to make friends with the language." As Miguel spoke about his approach to learning, Dr. Walsh found herself taking mental notes. His intuitive methods aligned with several cutting-edge theories in linguistics, yet he had developed them entirely on his own, without academic training. "Miguel," she said during a pause in the conversation, "have you ever considered teaching languages? Or working as a translator?" He smiled sadly. "Of course. But those jobs require degrees, certifications, papers I don't have." Dr. Walsh felt a pang of frustration at the system that kept someone with such gifts pushing a cleaning cart at night when he could be contributing so much more. "What if that could change?" she asked quietly. Miguel looked up at her, confusion in his eyes. "What do you mean?" Dr. Walsh wasn't entirely sure what she meant herself, but she knew she couldn't just walk away from this situation. Someone with Miguel's abilities deserved a chance to use them fully. "I don't know yet," she admitted. but I'd like to find out. Would you be willing to meet again? Maybe show me more about how you approach a new language." Miguel studied her face for a long moment as if trying to determine her motives. Finally, he nodded. "Yes, I would like that." As they said goodbye outside the cafe, Dr. Walsh watched Miguel walk toward the maintenance building, his shoulders slightly hunched against the cold night air. A plan was already forming in her mind. She didn't know exactly what shape it would take, but she was certain of one thing. She had just met someone extraordinary, and she couldn't simply go back to business as usual. Over the next 2 weeks, Dr. Walsh met with Miguel 3 more times. Each meeting revealed more layers to his remarkable story. They sat in the same corner of the campus cafe, their meeting stretching longer each time as Miguel gradually opened up about his past. "I grew up in a small village near Quetzaltenango," Miguel told her one evening, warming his hands around a cup of tea. "My father grew coffee, but the farm was small. Not enough to support all 7 children." Dr. Walsh tried to picture it, a young Miguel in a remote mountain village in Guatemala, a world away from Harvard's hallowed halls. "Did you go to school there?" Miguel nodded. "Until I was 12. Our teacher, Mrs. Dominguez, she saw something in me. She would give me extra books, old textbooks from the city. I read everything I could get my hands on." "You were a natural student," Dr. Walsh observed. "I was curious," Miguel corrected with a small smile. "Always asking why, how, what if. It drove my parents crazy sometimes." His expression grew more serious. "When I was 14, there was trouble in our region. Political groups fighting, threatening local farmers. My father spoke out at a community meeting. The next day, men came to our house." He paused, staring at his tea. Dr. Walsh waited, not wanting to push. "My parents sent me to my uncle in Guatemala City that night. They said they would follow, but..." He shook his head. "Communications were cut off. I never saw them again. I'm so sorry," Dr. Walsh said softly. Miguel acknowledged her sympathy with a slight nod. "My uncle worked as a tour guide. He knew some English, enough to deal with American tourists. He taught me what he knew, and I picked it up quickly. Soon I was helping him with tours, learning phrases from the visitors." "Your first foreign language," Dr. Walsh noted. "Yes, but then my uncle got sick. Medical bills piled up. I was 17 by then, so I found work with a shipping company that did business with Mexico and the U.S. Miguel's eyes took on a distant look. "One of the truck drivers offered to take me across the border. Said there were better opportunities, better pay." Dr. Walsh could guess where this was heading. "You came to the U.S.? "Not legally," Miguel admitted. "I spent 3 days hidden in a truck with 5 others. We ended up in Arizona. The driver took all our money, then left us at a gas station in the middle of nowhere." He described his journey northward, odd jobs in Arizona and New Mexico, always looking over his shoulder, afraid of being caught and sent back. He picked up bits of Mandarin from the family that owned the restaurant where he washed dishes. He learned French from Canadian tourists at the hotel where he worked as a janitor. Each new language became both a survival tool and an escape from his lonely existence. "The Russian family in New York, they were good people," Miguel continued. "The grandmother reminded me of my own. She couldn't speak English, and the family was too busy to translate everything for her. So they hired me because I spoke Spanish, which she had learned in Cuba years ago." "And they taught you Russian in return?" Dr. Walsh asked. "Not formally. But they spoke it at home, and the grandmother would correct me when I tried to use new words. She loved that I wanted to learn." He smiled at the memory. "She said I had the gift." "You do," Dr. Walsh agreed. "What you're describing, the way you absorb languages through immersion and connection, it's exactly what linguistics researchers have been studying for years. Most people need structured learning, but some rare individuals can acquire languages almost naturally like children do." Miguel shrugged. "It never seemed special to me. Just necessary." "How did you end up in Boston?" Dr. Walsh asked. "I followed a friend who said there were good jobs here. That was 7 years ago. I worked in restaurants at first, then got the position at Harvard 3 years ago. The pay is better and they don't ask too many questions about papers." He hesitated. "I have documentation now, not perfect, but enough to work legally." Dr. Walsh nodded, understanding the delicate situation. "And when did you learn Arabic?" "My roommate when I first came to Boston was from Syria. He was taking English classes and I helped him practice. He taught me Arabic in exchange." Miguel's eyes lit up. "Arabic is beautiful. The way the sounds connect, how the writing flows. Very different from European languages. As Miguel spoke about each language, Dr. Walsh was struck by his intuitive understanding of linguistic patterns, connections and distinctions that took her students years to grasp. He spoke of languages like old friends, each with its own personality and history. The hardest was German, he admitted. All those rules, the way sentences are constructed, it's very precise. And which came most easily to you? Dr. Walsh asked. Portuguese. After Spanish and a little Italian, it felt familiar, like meeting a cousin you recognize immediately. He smiled. Languages from the same family share blood. Dr. Walsh nodded enthusiastically. That's exactly right. The Romance languages evolved from Latin, so they share root words and grammatical structures. Most linguistics students need a semester to understand what you've intuited naturally. Their conversation shifted to Miguel's life at Harvard. Each night, after finishing his cleaning rounds, he would find an empty classroom and listen to recorded lectures left on the computers. Sometimes he borrowed books that students had abandoned in the study lounges. I've listened to some of your lectures, actually, he admitted, with a shy smile. The ones on comparative phonology. I didn't understand all the technical terms, but your ideas about sound patterns across language families, that made sense to me. Dr. Walsh felt a strange mix of emotions, flattered that he had sought out her lectures, impressed by his initiative and increasingly troubled by the waste of his potential. Miguel, she said carefully, have you ever thought about taking classes? Community college, maybe? His expression closed slightly. Of course. Many times. But classes cost money, Professor. And they happen during the day, when I need to sleep before my night shift. Life is complicated, Dr. Walsh nodded, understanding. Yes, of course. I'm sorry if I oversimplified. No need to apologize, Miguel said, glancing at his watch. I should get going. My shift starts in 20 minutes. As they parted, Dr. Walsh felt a growing sense of responsibility. Here was a man with extraordinary gifts, essentially self-educated, who understood language acquisition in ways that aligned perfectly with her research. Yet the system offered him no path forward. As a tenured professor at one of the world's most prestigious universities, didn't she have some obligation to do more than just marvel at his abilities? The next morning, Dr. Walsh arrived at her office earlier than usual. She spent an hour researching university policies, special admission programs, scholarship opportunities. There wasn't an obvious pathway for someone in Miguel's situation, but there had to be possibilities. At 11 a.m., she walked to the office of Dr. Thomas Chen, the linguistics department chair. They had worked together for over a decade and shared similar views on educational access. Eleanor, he greeted her with a smile. This is unexpected. What brings you by so early? I need your advice on something, Tom. It's a bit unconventional. She took a deep breath. What would you say if I told you I've discovered someone with extraordinary linguistic abilities, fluency in 9 languages, all self-taught, working as a janitor here at Harvard? Dr. Chen raised his eyebrows. I'd say that sounds like the plot of a movie I saw years ago. Are you serious? Completely, Dr. Walsh replied. His name is Miguel Suarez. He cleans our department at night. I've met with him several times now, and Tom, he's remarkable. His intuitive understanding of language patterns matches everything we've been researching about accelerated acquisition. Dr. Chen leaned back in his chair, intrigued. 9 languages? Self-taught? Spanish is his native tongue. Then English, Mandarin, Russian, Arabic, French, German, Portuguese, and Italian. She explained Miguel's background, his methods of learning, the depth of his understanding. That is unusual, Dr. Chen admitted. But Eleanor, what exactly are you proposing? I don't know yet, she confessed. But it seems wrong that someone with his gifts is pushing a broom when he could be contributing to our field. He has no formal education beyond primary school, but his practical knowledge is extraordinary. Dr. Chen tapped his fingers thoughtfully on his desk. The university does have some special admission programs for non-traditional students, and there's the staff educational benefit, though I'm not sure if it applies to custodial workers. Would you be willing to meet him? Dr. Walsh asked. Just to confirm I'm not exaggerating his abilities? Dr. Chen checked his calendar. I could spare 30 minutes tomorrow afternoon. But Eleanor, please manage your expectations, even if he's as gifted as you say. The institutional barriers are significant. I understand, she said, rising to leave. Thank you, Tom. That evening, Dr. Walsh waited near the maintenance building until Miguel arrived for his shift. "Professor Walsh," he said, surprised to see her. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," she assured him. "I just wanted to ask if you'd be willing to meet with the head of our department tomorrow. Dr. Chen is interested in your language abilities." Miguel's expression turned wary. "Why, am I in trouble for listening to the lectures?" "No, nothing like that," Dr. Walsh said quickly. "He's just interested in talking with you, professionally." Miguel studied her face, clearly trying to understand what was happening. "I don't know, Professor. I'm not comfortable being treated like some kind of curiosity." "That's not it at all," Dr. Walsh insisted. "Miguel, people with your abilities are rare. In the academic world, your insights would be valued, studied, published. I just want Dr. Chen to hear what I've heard, to understand what I understand." "And then what?" Miguel asked bluntly. Dr. Walsh hesitated. "I don't know exactly. But maybe there's a way for you to use your gifts more fully, to share them." Miguel was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, but I can only meet during my lunch break, 1:30 to 2:15. "That's perfect," Dr. Walsh said, relieved. "We'll be in Dr. Chen's office. I can meet you in the lobby to show you where it is." As Miguel continued to his shift, Dr. Walsh felt both excitement and anxiety. What if Dr. Chen didn't see what she saw? What if there was no viable path forward? She was potentially raising Miguel's hopes for nothing. Yet as she walked to her car, she felt certain she was doing the right thing. In her 15 years of teaching, she had never encountered anyone like Miguel Suarez. His gift was too extraordinary to remain hidden in the shadows of academia, visible only when the professors had gone home and the classroom stood empty. That night, she dreamed of languages, rivers of words flowing together, separating, merging again, and standing at the confluence was Miguel, directing the currents with quiet confidence, showing others the way across. The next day, Dr. Walsh paced nervously outside the linguistics department's main entrance. The meeting with Dr. Chen was scheduled for 1:30, and it was already 1:25 with no sign of Miguel. Had he changed his mind? She wouldn't blame him if he had. This whole situation must seem strange from his perspective. At exactly 1:28, Miguel appeared, walking briskly across the quad. He had changed from his work uniform into a clean button-down shirt and khaki pants. His hair was neatly combed and he carried a small notebook under his arm. The transformation was striking. He looked like he could be a teaching assistant or graduate student. "I'm sorry if I'm late," he said, slightly out of breath. "The bus was delayed." "You're right on time," Dr. Walsh assured him, leading him into the building. "Thank you for coming, Miguel. I know this is unusual." As they walked down the hallway toward Dr. Chen's office, Dr. Walsh could sense Miguel's nervousness. "Just be yourself," she said quietly. "Dr. Chen just wants to have a conversation, that's all." Miguel nodded. Taking a deep breath as they reached the department chair's door, Dr. Walsh knocked, and Dr. Chen called for them to enter. "Eleanor," Dr. Chen said, rising from behind his desk. "And you must be Mr. Suarez. Please come in and have a seat." Dr. Chen's office was typical of a senior academic. Bookshelves overflowing with texts in various languages, walls covered with framed degrees and awards, a large desk cluttered with papers and journals. He was a man in his early 60s with salt and pepper hair and round glasses that gave him an owlish appearance. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with us," Dr. Walsh said, sitting in one of the chairs facing the desk. Miguel took the other, his posture stiff. "Of course," Dr. Chen replied with a warm smile. "Dr. Walsh has told me quite a bit about you, Mr. Suarez. She says you speak 9 languages." Miguel glanced at Dr. Walsh, then back to Dr. Chen. "Yes, sir. Some better than others." "Which would you say you're most comfortable with besides your native Spanish?" Miguel considered this. "English, of course, since I've been in this country for many years now. After that, probably Mandarin. I worked in a Chinese restaurant for nearly 4 years, and the family took me in almost like one of their own." Dr. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. "Mandarin? That's interesting." He switched suddenly to speaking in Mandarin, asking Miguel about his experience in China. Miguel replied fluently, explaining that he had never actually been to China, but had learned from friends and co-workers. His accent was remarkably authentic, with the tonal qualities that most non-native speakers struggled to master. Dr. Chen continued the conversation in Mandarin for several minutes, occasionally using complex idioms or technical terms, Miguel followed without difficulty, sometimes asking for clarification but generally keeping pace with the rapid exchange. Finally, Dr. Chen switched to Russian, asking if Miguel could understand him. Miguel smiled and responded in kind, his accent shifting subtly to accommodate the new language's rhythms and sounds. After a brief exchange in Russian, Dr. Chen tried French, then Arabic. Each time, Miguel responded appropriately, with varying levels of fluency, but always with natural intonation and practical command of the language. After nearly 20 minutes of this linguistic tour, Dr. Chen sat back in his chair and returned to English. "Remarkable," he said softly, almost to himself. Then to Miguel, "Your abilities are quite extraordinary, Mr. Suarez." Dr. Walsh wasn't exaggerating. Miguel looked down modestly. "Thank you, sir. Languages have always made sense to me." "Tell me," Dr. Chen said, leaning forward, "how do you approach learning a new language? What's your method?" Miguel glanced at Dr. Walsh, who nodded encouragingly. "I listen first," Miguel explained. "For as long as possible, just listening. Understanding comes before speaking. I try to hear the patterns, the music of it. Every language has its own rhythm. And grammar?" Dr. Chen asked. "It comes later. First I learn phrases, complete thoughts. The grammar emerges from the patterns." Miguel paused, choosing his words carefully. "It's like, when you're a child, you don't learn to speak by studying rules. You learn by copying what you hear, making mistakes, trying again. Your brain figures out the rules, without anyone telling you." Dr. Chen exchanged a meaningful look with Dr. Walsh. What Miguel was describing aligned perfectly with their research on natural language acquisition. "Where did you develop this approach?" Dr. Chen asked. Miguel shrugged. "Nowhere special. It's just what worked for me. When you need to communicate to survive, you find the fastest way." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Mr. Suarez, would you mind stepping outside for a moment? I'd like to speak privately with Dr. Walsh." "Of course," Miguel said, rising immediately. "Thank you for your time, Dr. Chen." When the door closed behind him, Dr. Chen turned to Dr. Walsh with wide eyes. "Eleanor, he's extraordinary. His Mandarin is better than most of our graduate students, and his intuitive understanding of acquisition methodology." He shook his head in amazement. "You were right to bring this to my attention. So you agree there's something here worth pursuing?" Dr. Walsh asked eagerly. "Absolutely. The question is how?" Dr. Chen rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "He has no formal qualifications, no papers we could use to admit him as a student." "What about the staff educational benefit?" Dr. Walsh suggested. "He is an employee. Custodial staff are actually contracted through university services, not direct employees," Dr. Chen explained. "And even if he were eligible, the benefit only covers a portion of tuition. He'd still need to qualify for admission and figure out how to balance work and studies." Dr. Walsh's excitement dimmed slightly. "There must be some way, Tom. Someone with his gifts." Dr. Chen held up a hand. "I agree with you. Let me think." He tapped his fingers on the desk for a moment. "What about the Barton Foundation grant? For non-traditional students?" Dr. Walsh asked. "Isn't that for people with at least some college experience?" "Technically, yes. But the language in the grant gives us some flexibility for exceptional cases demonstrating extraordinary potential." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "I sit on the selection committee. If we documented Mr. Suarez's abilities properly, created a portfolio, we could make a case," Dr. Walsh finished, her excitement rebuilding. "It wouldn't be easy," Dr. Chen cautioned, "and it would require a significant commitment from him. He'd need to prepare for placement exams, prove himself academically." "But it's possible," Dr. Walsh pressed. "Yes, it's possible." Dr. Chen sighed. "Let me speak with the committee chair, feel things out. In the meantime, we could offer him a position as a language partner for our students. Paid, of course. It would get him in the door, establish his credentials practically, if not academically." "That's brilliant," Dr. Walsh said. "Would that be possible to arrange?"
"Leave it with me," Dr. Chen replied.
"Now let's bring him back in and discuss it with him." When Miguel returned, his face was carefully neutral, but Dr. Walsh could see the tension in his shoulders. He was expecting to be dismissed, thanked politely for his time, but ultimately sent back to his cleaning cart. "Mr. Suarez," Dr. Chen began, "Dr. Walsh and I are in agreement that your linguistic abilities are truly exceptional. We believe there may be opportunities for you here at the university that would better utilize your talents. Miguel blinked in surprise. What kind of opportunities? Initially, we'd like to offer you a position as a language partner for our students, Dr. Chen explained. You would work with students studying Mandarin, Spanish, and perhaps other languages, helping them practice conversation and pronunciation. It would be a paid position, of course, but my job, Miguel started. We'd work around your schedule at first, Dr. Walsh assured him. A few hours a week whenever you're available. Miguel looked between them, clearly trying to process this unexpected turn of events. Why would you do this? I have no teaching experience, no qualifications. You have the most important qualification, Dr. Chen said firmly. You have mastery of the languages. The rest we can teach you. Miguel sat silent for a moment. And then what? Dr. Chen exchanged glances with Dr. Walsh. We're also exploring possibilities for educational pathways. Nothing we can promise yet, but there may be options for you to formalize your education, perhaps even pursue a degree. Miguel's expression changed from confusion to something like hope, then quickly back to caution. This seems too good to be true, Professor. People like me don't usually get these kinds of opportunities. People with your linguistic gifts are exceedingly rare, Mr. Suarez, Dr. Chen replied. And universities are in the business of nurturing talent wherever we find it. Miguel took a deep breath. Can I think about it? This is all very unexpected. Of course, Dr. Walsh said quickly. Take all the time you need. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Miguel nodded, then glanced at his watch. I should get back to work. My break is almost over. After Miguel left, Dr. Walsh turned to Dr. Chen. Do you think he'll accept? I'm not sure, Dr. Chen admitted. It's a big step. From his perspective, there must seem like a catch somewhere. Should I talk to him more about it? Dr. Walsh asked. Give him space, Dr. Chen advised. He needs to decide this for himself. For the next 3 days, Dr. Walsh didn't see Miguel. His cleaning rounds must have been adjusted, or perhaps he was deliberately avoiding her. She began to worry that they had overwhelmed him, pushed too hard too fast. On the 4th day, she was grading papers in her office late in the evening, when there was a soft knock at her door. Miguel stood there, still in his work uniform, but with a determined look on his face. Professor Walsh, he said, do you have a moment? Of course, she replied, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Please, come in. Miguel sat down, hands clasped in his lap. I've been thinking about the offer from you and Dr. Chen. And? Dr. Walsh tried not to sound too eager. I want to accept, Miguel said. But I need to understand exactly what I'm getting into. What would be expected of me? Dr. Walsh nodded. That's entirely reasonable. As a language partner, you'd start with just a few hours a week, working with students who are studying languages you speak fluently. The department would provide training on teaching methods, though much of it would be conversational practice. And the pay? Miguel asked directly. $25 an hour to start, Dr. Walsh replied. It's the standard rate for specialized language tutors. Miguel's eyebrows rose slightly. That's generous. It's what you're worth, Dr. Walsh said firmly. Your skills are valuable, Miguel. He nodded slowly. And this other part, the education possibilities. What exactly are we talking about? Dr. Chen is exploring several options, Dr. Walsh explained. One is a special grant for non-traditional students with exceptional abilities. It would potentially cover tuition and provide a stipend, allowing you to reduce your custodial hours. To study what exactly? That would be up to you, Dr. Walsh said. Given your abilities, linguistics would be a natural fit, but you could pursue other interests. Miguel was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Why are you doing this, Professor? Why me? Dr. Walsh considered her answer carefully. Because in 15 years of teaching, I've never encountered someone with your natural gift for languages. Because our department researches the very abilities you demonstrate naturally. And because it seems wrong that someone with your talents is cleaning floors when you could be contributing to our understanding of language acquisition. Miguel looked down at his hands. I've been cleaning floors for a long time, Professor. It's honest work. Absolutely, Dr. Walsh agreed quickly. I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. But it's not all I can do, Miguel continued softly. I've always known that. I just never saw a way forward. Would you like us to try to make one? Dr. Walsh asked. Miguel looked up, meeting her eyes directly. Yes, I would. Dr. Walsh felt a surge of relief and excitement. Wonderful. I'll let Dr. Chen know right away. We can start setting things up for next week. There's one more thing, Miguel said. I need to keep my night job, at least for now. I have financial responsibilities, of course, Dr. Walsh assured him. This would be in addition to your current work, not a replacement, unless and until you decide otherwise. Miguel nodded, then stood up. Thank you, Professor Walsh, for seeing something in me worth developing. The potential was always there, Miguel. I just happened to be the one who overheard you speaking Mandarin. After Miguel left, Dr. Walsh sat back in her chair, a mixture of emotions washing over her. Excitement for what might be possible, anxiety about the bureaucratic hurdles ahead, but mostly a profound sense of rightness. This was why she had become an educator, to help unlock human potential, to open doors for those with the gifts and determination to walk through them. She picked up her phone and called Dr. Chen with the news. His response was immediate and enthusiastic. Excellent. I've already spoken with the Barton Foundation Committee Chair. They're intrigued by the case. We have work to do, Eleanor, but I think we might be able to make something extraordinary happen here. As she hung up, Dr. Walsh found herself smiling. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they had taken the first step. And for tonight, that was enough. Word spread quickly through the linguistics department. A janitor who spoke 9 languages was joining them as a language partner. Some faculty members were intrigued, others skeptical. Among the graduate students, reactions ranged from curiosity to resentment. Who was this person with no formal education to be thrust into their academic world? Miguel's first day as a language partner was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Walsh arranged to meet him at the department's language lab, a space equipped with recording equipment and private conversation booths. When she arrived, Miguel was already there 15 minutes early, sitting stiffly in the waiting area. He wore the same button-down shirt and khakis he'd worn to meet Dr. Chen, and he clutched a new notebook in his hands. The anxiety radiating from him was almost palpable. Miguel, Dr. Walsh greeted him warmly. Are you ready for your first session? He stood quickly. I think so. I couldn't sleep much last night, to be honest. That's perfectly normal, she assured him. First day jitters happen to everyone. Dr. Walsh led him through the language lab, explaining the equipment and procedures. Today you'll be meeting with 2 students studying Mandarin. They're both intermediate level, about 2 years of study. Your job is simply to converse with them, help them practice real-world language use. Miguel nodded, absorbing the information. Should I correct their mistakes? Gently, yes. The goal is to build confidence while improving accuracy. Remember, conversation is about communication first, perfection second. As they talked, a young woman approached them. She was tall and confident with an air of academic intensity. Dr. Walsh, she said, I heard the new language partner was starting today. I wanted to introduce myself. She turned to Miguel with a professional smile. I'm Lily Harrington, second-year graduate student in comparative linguistics. Miguel Suarez, he replied, shaking her offered hand. Lily is one of our most promising doctoral candidates, Dr. Walsh explained. She's working on tonal pattern recognition across language families. That sounds fascinating, Miguel said sincerely. Dr. Chen mentioned you're quite the polyglot, Lily said, studying him with undisguised curiosity. 9 languages, was it? Miguel nodded, looking slightly uncomfortable with the attention. And all self-taught? No formal training? Lily pressed. That's correct, Miguel said quietly. Remarkable, Lily said, though her tone suggested skepticism. I'd love to hear more about your methods sometime. Perhaps we could chat after your session today. Before Miguel could respond, Dr. Walsh interjected. Miguel has a tight schedule, Lily. Perhaps another time when he's settled in. Lily smiled thinly. Of course. I'll look forward to it. Nice meeting you, Mr. Suarez. As Lily walked away, Dr. Walsh noticed Miguel's shoulders relax slightly. Don't mind her, she said in a low voice. Some of our graduate students can be a bit intense. She doesn't believe I can do what you say I can do, Miguel observed. Probably not, Dr. Walsh admitted. But that's not unusual in academia. People tend to respect credentials over abilities until proven otherwise. And how do I prove otherwise? Dr. Walsh smiled. By doing exactly what you're about to do, share your knowledge effectively. Results speak louder than degrees in the end. At that moment, 2 undergraduate students arrived for Miguel's first session. They introduced themselves as Ben and Wei, both studying Mandarin as part of the East Asian Studies program. "I'll leave you to it," Dr. Walsh said. "Just remember, keep it conversational and supportive. I'll check in after your session." As Dr. Walsh stepped away, she heard Miguel switch smoothly into Mandarin, greeting the students and asking about their studies. His voice was different in Mandarin, more melodious with perfect tonal inflections. The students looked surprised, then impressed. Dr. Walsh returned to her office, leaving Miguel to his first teaching experience. She had arranged for 3 sessions that day, with students of varying levels in Mandarin and Spanish. It was a gentle introduction to what she hoped would become a regular position. 2 hours later, there was a knock at her office door. Miguel stood there looking simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. "How did it go?" Dr. Walsh asked, gesturing for him to enter. "It was..." Miguel searched for the words. "Amazing, terrifying, wonderful," Dr. Walsh smiled. "Tell me more." "The Mandarin students were shocked that I spoke so naturally," Miguel explained, sitting down across from her. "They kept asking where I learned, whether I'd lived in China. But once we started talking, they relaxed. By the end, they were asking about slang expressions and regional differences, things they said their professors never cover." "And the Spanish students?" "That was different," Miguel said. "I had to adjust my dialect. I speak Guatemalan Spanish, but they're learning the Castilian style. But again, they were most interested in how the language is actually used in daily life, not just textbook phrases." Dr. Walsh nodded. "That's exactly what we hoped for. Textbooks and lectures can teach structure, but there's no substitute for conversation with a fluent speaker." "One student asked if I'd be available regularly," Miguel added. "She said she learned more in 30 minutes with me than in weeks of class. How did that make you feel?" Dr. Walsh asked, watching his expression carefully. Miguel thought for a moment. "Useful in a new way. When I clean, I make spaces better for others. But this," he gestured vaguely, "this is different. I'm sharing something inside me." Dr. Walsh smiled warmly. "That's teaching, Miguel. At its core, that's exactly what teaching is." Over the next few weeks, Miguel's schedule expanded to include more language sessions. Word spread among the students that the new language partner was exceptional, patient, knowledgeable, and able to explain concepts in ways that made intuitive sense. Soon there was a waiting list for his sessions, but not everyone was as enthusiastic. Some faculty members quietly questioned the wisdom of bringing someone without credentials into their department, even in a limited role. And among the graduate students, a small faction led by Lily Harrington remained skeptical, even dismissive. "It sets a concerning precedent," Lily argued during a department meeting that Miguel didn't attend. "We spend years earning our qualifications. What message does it send if someone can just walk in off the street and start teaching?" "He's not teaching courses, Lily," Dr. Chen pointed out. "He's a conversation partner, who's being paid the same hourly rate as graduate teaching assistants," another doctoral student added. "For skills that are demonstrably valuable to our students," Dr. Walsh countered, trying to keep the frustration from her voice. "The waiting list for his session speaks for itself." "Popularity isn't the same as pedagogical value," Lily insisted. "Has anyone actually assessed his methods? His accuracy? Or are we just assuming that because he can speak these languages, he can effectively help others learn them?" The discussion continued in this vein, with Dr. Chen eventually steering the meeting back to other department business. But the undercurrent of resistance remained. Miguel, meanwhile, was unaware of these departmental politics. He was too busy balancing his new role with his continuing night job. 3 evenings a week, he would finish his language sessions, grab a quick meal, then change into his custodial uniform for his regular shift. It was during one of these transitions that Lily Harrington encountered him in the department's break room. Miguel had just changed into his uniform and was making a cup of coffee to help him stay alert through his cleaning shift. "Mr. Suarez," Lily said, entering the room. "I didn't expect to find you here so late." "I work the night shift," Miguel explained simply, stirring his coffee. "Ah, yes. I'd forgotten." Lily poured herself a cup from the same pot. "It must be difficult balancing both jobs." "It's worth it," Miguel replied. Lily studied him for a moment. "I've been meaning to ask you about your language acquisition methods. Dr. Walsh seems quite impressed by your intuitive approach." Miguel sensed the skepticism in her tone but responded politely. I'd be happy to discuss it sometime, though I'm not sure how much help I can be. I don't have a formal method. That's precisely what interests me, Lily said, leaning against the counter. You see, in academia, we value systematic approaches, reproducible methods. The idea that someone can just pick up multiple languages without structured study runs counter to most of our research. Not everyone learns the same way, Miguel offered. True, Lily conceded. But exceptional cases don't make for good teaching models. What works for one uniquely gifted individual rarely translates to the general student population. Miguel considered this. Perhaps, but even if my experience is unusual, couldn't it still offer insights? Different perspectives can be valuable even if they're not universal. Lily looked slightly surprised by his response. A fair point, Mr. Suarez. Though I wonder if you've read Chomsky's work on universal grammar, or Krashen's theories on language acquisition versus language learning. Your ideas might fit within existing theoretical frameworks. I haven't read those works, Miguel admitted, but I would like to. Something in his simple honesty seemed to soften Lily's approach slightly. The department library has good introductory texts on linguistic theory. If you're serious about understanding the field. Thank you, Miguel said sincerely. I'll look into that. Lily nodded, then checked her watch. I should get back to my research. Good night, Mr. Suarez. After she left, Miguel sipped his coffee thoughtfully. The encounter had been uncomfortable but enlightening. He was an outsider here, respected by some for his abilities but lacking the theoretical foundation that formed the backbone of academic linguistics. If he was going to find a place in this world, he needed to understand its language as thoroughly as he understood Spanish or Mandarin. The next day, instead of eating lunch in the campus cafe, Miguel went to the department library. He asked the librarian for introductory texts on linguistic theory, and was directed to a shelf of intimidating-looking volumes. He selected one titled Fundamentals of Language Acquisition and found a quiet corner to read. The text was dense with technical terminology and references to studies and theories Miguel had never heard of. He read slowly, looking up words he didn't understand, taking careful notes. Some concepts seemed to align with his own experiences, while others described learning processes entirely foreign to his intuitive methods. He was so absorbed that he lost track of time, nearly missing his first language session of the afternoon. As he hurried out, he approached the librarian. May I check this out? To continue reading later? The librarian looked apologetic. I'm sorry, but these reference materials are for department faculty and enrolled students only. You can read them here anytime during library hours, though. Miguel nodded, understanding. Another barrier, another reminder that he existed in a liminal space. Not quite staff, not quite academic, somewhere in between. These challenges didn't diminish his enthusiasm for his new role. Over the coming weeks, Miguel's sessions grew increasingly popular. Students began requesting him specifically, praising his ability to explain complex language concepts in accessible ways. He developed exercises and conversation topics tailored to different proficiency levels. Without formal training in pedagogy, he instinctively adapted his approach to each student's learning style. Dr. Walsh observed one of his Mandarin sessions from behind the one-way glass of the language lab's monitoring room. Miguel was working with an advanced student, role-playing a business negotiation entirely in Mandarin. His fluency was impressive, but what struck Dr. Walsh most was his teaching presence, patient yet challenging, supportive yet unwilling to let errors slide. The student was fully engaged, pushing the limits of her abilities in a way that classroom exercises rarely achieved. When the session ended, Dr. Walsh met Miguel in the hallway. That was extraordinary, she told him. You're a natural teacher. Miguel smiled, pleased but embarrassed by the praise. The students make it easy. They want to learn. I've been meaning to talk to you about something, Dr. Walsh said. Dr. Chen has made progress with the Barton Foundation grant. They're interested in your case, but they want a formal assessment of your language abilities and a personal statement about your educational goals. Miguel's expression turned serious. What kind of assessment? Proficiency testing in your strongest languages to start. We'd document the results as part of your application, and this could lead to, potentially, a full scholarship, Dr. Walsh explained, trying to contain her excitement. Tuition fees and a living stipend that would allow you to reduce your custodial hours and focus on studies. Miguel was quiet for a moment. To study linguistics? That would be the obvious choice given your abilities, but the scholarship isn't limited to a specific field. When would this happen? Miguel asked. The testing? We could arrange it within the next few weeks. The application deadline for next fall's funding is coming up. Miguel nodded slowly. I'll need to think about it. This would be a big change. Of course, Dr. Walsh assured him. Take all the time you need. But Miguel, she added, this is a rare opportunity. Your talents deserve to be developed fully. That evening, Miguel worked his cleaning shift as usual, but his mind was elsewhere. As he emptied trash bins and wiped down surfaces, he contemplated a future he had never imagined for himself. College student. Perhaps someday scholar. The idea was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. As he cleaned Dr. Chen's office, he noticed a book on the desk. Multilingualism and Cognitive Flexibility. Unable to resist, he paused his cleaning to flip through it. The text discussed research showing that polyglots, people who spoke multiple languages, demonstrated enhanced cognitive abilities in several areas, including problem-solving and cultural awareness. Miguel was so absorbed in reading that he didn't hear the door open. Interesting, isn't it? Dr. Chen's voice made him jump. I'm sorry, Miguel said quickly, closing the book. I shouldn't have. No need to apologize, Dr. Chen said, waving away his concern. Curiosity is the foundation of learning. It is interesting, Miguel admitted. I've never thought about how knowing multiple languages might affect thinking in other ways. Dr. Chen smiled. That's actually my current research focus. The cognitive advantages of multilingualism extend far beyond just communication. They reshape neural pathways, enhance executive function, even delay cognitive decline in aging. Miguel considered this. So there's value in studying people who speak many languages? Beyond just the languages themselves? Enormous value, Dr. Chen confirmed. Especially cases like yours, where acquisition occurred naturally rather than through formal study. We have decent research on classroom-based multilingualism, but far less on intuitive acquisition. Miguel was silent for a moment. Dr. Walsh mentioned an assessment. For the scholarship application? Yes, Dr. Chen nodded. Standard proficiency testing, plus some additional measures of language processing and cognitive flexibility. Nothing to worry about. And if I did receive the scholarship, Miguel continued carefully, what would be expected of me? Full-time study, Dr. Chen replied. Maintaining good academic standing. Participating in departmental research as appropriate. The usual requirements for any scholarship recipient. Miguel nodded slowly. I'll do it. The assessment, and if it leads to the scholarship, I'm ready for that too. Dr. Chen smiled broadly. Excellent. I'll let Dr. Walsh know. We'll schedule the testing as soon as possible. As Miguel resumed his cleaning, Dr. Chen added, You know, Mr. Suarez, in my 30 years in academia, I've rarely encountered someone with your natural gifts. Whatever path you choose, I believe you have much to contribute to our understanding of how humans acquire and process language. After Dr. Chen left, Miguel stood quietly in the empty office, cleaning supplies in hand. For so long he had defined himself by the work he did. Dishwasher, janitor, service worker. Jobs that kept him fed and housed but asked little of his mind. Now suddenly that mind, its particular abilities and unique perspective, was being valued in ways he had never anticipated. It was frightening to step into this new world, with its unfamiliar rules and expectations. But for the first time in years, Miguel felt something he had almost forgotten. The pure, simple joy of learning, of being challenged, of pushing beyond what he thought possible. As he finished his shift and walked out into the cool night air, the campus around him seemed different somehow. The buildings that had once been just places he cleaned now represented possibility, opportunity, a future he was only beginning to imagine. 2 years later, the main lecture hall in Thompson Building was packed to capacity. Faculty members, students, and staff crowded the aisles and stood along the walls. On the small stage at the front, Miguel Suarez adjusted his tie nervously as Dr. Walsh introduced him to the audience. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this special symposium on immersive language acquisition techniques, Dr. Walsh was saying. Our presenter today has become something of a legend in our department over the past 2 years. As many of you know, Miguel Suarez began his journey at Harvard as a member of our custodial staff. Today he stands before you as a junior scholar, teaching assistant, and one of our most promising undergraduate researchers. From his seat in the front row, Dr. Chen beamed proudly. Next to him sat the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, who had personally requested to attend after hearing about Miguel's remarkable story. Miguel's path has been unconventional, to say the least, Dr. Walsh continued, but his contributions to our understanding of natural language acquisition have already challenged long-standing assumptions in our field. His paper on immersive contextual learning patterns, published last semester in the Journal of Applied Linguistics, has generated significant discussion among researchers worldwide. In the audience, Lily Harrington watched with an expression that had evolved from skepticism to grudging respect over the past 2 years. As one of the teaching assistants assigned to work with Miguel when he began his formal studies, she had initially approached the task with reservation. But over time, his genuine intellectual curiosity and unique insights had won her over. They still debated vigorously about theoretical frameworks, but now those debates were between colleagues rather than gatekeeper and outsider. Without further ado, Dr. Walsh concluded, I am honored to present Miguel Suarez, who will discuss his groundbreaking research on immersive language learning techniques. As Miguel approached the podium, the applause was warm and genuine. He looked different now, confident in his well-fitted suit, his posture straight, his eyes bright with intelligence and purpose. But there was still a humility to him, a groundedness that came from his unusual path. Thank you, Dr. Walsh, for that kind introduction, Miguel began, and thank you all for coming today. 2 years ago, I stood in this very building with a mop and bucket, cleaning these floors late at night. Sometimes I would stop to listen outside lecture halls, trying to absorb knowledge that seemed just out of reach. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. My journey from that life to this podium is a testament not just to my own determination, but to the vision of people like Dr. Walsh and Dr. Chen, who saw potential where others might have seen only a janitor. Their willingness to look beyond traditional boundaries has changed not just my life, but potentially how we understand language acquisition itself. For the next 45 minutes, Miguel presented his research with clarity and confidence. His work focused on how immersive, contextual learning, the very method by which he had acquired his languages, could be adapted for formal educational settings. He moved smoothly between English, Mandarin, and Spanish to demonstrate key concepts, showing how linguistic connections could be made visible through strategic code switching. The audience was rapt, particularly when Miguel explained how his background had informed his research. When you learn a language to survive, he told them, you develop a relationship with it that's fundamentally different from classroom study. The language becomes a tool, not an object of analysis. My research suggests we can incorporate elements of that tool-based approach even in academic settings. During the question period, hands shot up throughout the hall. Faculty members and graduate students alike were eager to engage with his ideas. Miguel handled their questions with thoughtfulness and occasional humor, never pretending to know more than he did, but confidently defending his conclusions where the evidence supported them. After the formal session ended, a crowd gathered around Miguel, continuing the discussion informally. Dr. Walsh watched from a distance, giving him space to enjoy this well-deserved moment in the spotlight. Dr. Chen joined her at the back of the hall. Quite a transformation, he remarked quietly. Yes, Dr. Walsh agreed. Though I'm not sure transformation is the right word. The intelligence, the insight, that was always there. What's changed is the opportunity to express it. And our perception, Dr. Chen added thoughtfully. We see him differently now, with the trappings of academia around him. But he's essentially the same person who was cleaning our offices at night. Not entirely the same, Dr. Walsh observed. Education changes us all, opens doors in our minds we didn't know existed. Miguel has grown intellectually in real and meaningful ways. True, Dr. Chen conceded, and he's changing our department as well. His perspective is unique, bridging practical immersion and theoretical frameworks in ways none of us had considered. The Barton Foundation people are thrilled with their investment. Dr. Walsh smiled. As they should be. His story is exactly what they created the scholarship for. Exceptional talent that might otherwise go undeveloped. As the crowd around Miguel finally thinned, Lily Harrington approached him. That was impressive, she said. with characteristic directness, especially the section on cognitive mapping across language families. It relates to my dissertation work in ways I hadn't considered. Thank you, Miguel replied. I've learned a lot from our discussions over the past year. Your critiques have strengthened my research considerably. Lily nodded, acknowledging the collegial compliment. The department is establishing a new research group on multilingual cognition next semester. Dr. Chen suggested I invite you to join. We could use your perspective. Miguel looked surprised, then pleased. I'd be honored. Thank you. As Lily walked away, Dr. Walsh approached. Congratulations, Miguel. Your presentation was extraordinary. I was nervous, he admitted with a small smile. 2 years ago, I would never have imagined standing up there, presenting research to professors and scholars. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined it either, Dr. Walsh confessed. I knew you had a gift for languages, but the way you've embraced academic research, theoretical frameworks, methodological rigor, that's been remarkable to witness. I've had good teachers, Miguel said simply. Dr. Walsh smiled. And now you are one. Your students speak very highly of you, you know. Your teaching evaluations from last semester were among the highest in the department. Miguel looked down modestly. Teaching comes naturally to me, I think. Explaining concepts in ways others can understand. It's not so different from how I learned languages myself. Finding connections, building bridges. They walked together toward the exit, passing the cleaning cart of the current custodian, who nodded respectfully to Miguel. They had worked together briefly, before Miguel's scholarship allowed him to leave the night shift behind. Have you thought about what comes next? Dr. Walsh asked as they stepped outside into the crisp autumn air. After you complete your bachelor's degree this spring? Miguel nodded. Dr. Chen has mentioned the possibility of the master's program, and there's a research position opening up with the Language Acquisition Lab. Both excellent options, Dr. Walsh agreed. Though given your unique background, you might also consider opportunities outside traditional academia. There are international organizations, educational nonprofits, even technology companies developing language learning platforms, all of which would value your expertise and perspective. I'm keeping my options open, Miguel said. Though I admit I've grown fond of Harvard, it's become a second home. Dr. Walsh smiled at the irony. A place you once knew only after hours from behind a cleaning cart. Life takes unexpected turns, Miguel observed. 2 years ago, I was cleaning these buildings and dreaming of a different life. Now I'm helping shape how languages are taught. Sometimes I still can't believe it. Believe it, Dr. Walsh said firmly. You've earned every bit of your success through hard work and genuine brilliance. No one gave you anything you didn't deserve. They paused at the crossroads where their paths would separate. Miguel to his afternoon class, Dr. Walsh to her office. There is one more piece of news I wanted to share with you, Dr. Walsh said. The department has established a new scholarship program for linguistically gifted students from disadvantaged backgrounds. It's being called the Suarez Scholarship. Miguel looked stunned. Named after me, but why? I haven't even graduated yet. Because your story has already inspired change within the department, Dr. Walsh explained. You've helped us recognize that academic potential exists in many forms and many places, including those we've traditionally overlooked. The scholarship will ensure that others with your gifts won't face the same barriers you did. Miguel was silent for a moment, visibly moved. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Dr. Walsh assured him. Just continue doing the excellent work you've been doing. Your success is the best argument for the program. As they parted ways, Dr. Walsh watched Miguel walk confidently across the quad toward his next class. Students greeted him as he passed, not as the janitor who cleaned their classrooms, but as a respected teaching assistant and promising young scholar. The transformation wasn't just in how others saw him, but in how he carried himself, with the quiet dignity of someone who had found his place in the world. Dr. Walsh reflected on the night 2 years ago, when she had first heard Miguel speaking Mandarin in the hallway outside her office. Such a small moment, she might easily have ignored it, dismissed it as irrelevant to her busy academic life. Instead, it had led to a journey that had changed not only Miguel's life, but the culture of the entire department. Later that afternoon, Dr. Walsh passed by the undergraduate library and glanced inside. There sat Miguel at a table surrounded by 4 students, books and papers spread before them. He was explaining something, switching fluidly between English and Spanish, his hands moving expressively to illustrate a concept. The students were engaged, asking questions, taking notes. It was such a natural scene, a talented teacher sharing knowledge with eager learners, that someone passing by would never guess the extraordinary story behind it. They wouldn't see the night janitor who had once stood outside these same rooms, listening to recorded lectures after hours. They wouldn't know about the barriers overcome, the doubts conquered, the system that had almost failed to recognize a remarkable mind. But Dr. Walsh knew. And as she continued on her way, she felt a deep satisfaction that transcended professional pride. In a world that too often judged people by their titles or credentials, she and Dr. Chen had seen beyond appearances to recognize true potential. And in doing so, they had helped unleash a gift that might otherwise have remained hidden, cleaning floors by night while dreams of a different life slowly faded. Now those dreams had become reality. And Miguel Suarez, once invisible to the academic world around him, had become not just visible but influential, changing perceptions, challenging assumptions, and opening doors for others who would follow his unlikely path from the margins to the center of intellectual life. As the sun set over Harvard Yard, casting long shadows across buildings that had stood for centuries, Dr. Walsh thought about all the unknown talents that might be walking these grounds, serving food in the dining halls, maintaining the facilities, driving the shuttle buses. How many more Miguels were out there, she wondered, with extraordinary gifts waiting to be discovered. The question stayed with her as she returned to her office. On her desk lay a copy of Miguel's recently published paper, which she had been rereading with pride earlier that day. Next to it was a small stack of applications for the newly established Suarez Scholarship, the first tangible sign that Miguel's journey had already begun to create ripples of change beyond his own. Dr. Walsh sat down and picked up the top application. Perhaps within these pages was another remarkable story waiting to unfold. Another mind ready to move from the shadows into the light. The thought filled her with renewed purpose as she began to read.